Imagine having your dream European vacation cancelled because you didn't know about crucial new changes that are going to affect millions of passengers traveling to Europe. Big changes are coming. So by the end of this video, you'll know 7 incredibly important new rules you need to know about if you're traveling to Europe in 2025. From a digital border revolution and the new ETIAS travel authorization scheme, to new tourist taxes across major cities, and changes to insurance requirements. Whether you're planning a quick getaway or a long stay, these updates are crucial to know for every international traveler heading to Europe. And make sure to watch till the end, because all 7 of these changes could affect your entry into Europe, the UK and beyond. So without further ado, let's start with the biggest change hitting European travel for decades, the new digital border system. Say goodbye to those nostalgic passport stamps, and hello to high-tech border control. Europe's new entry-exit system, or EES, is launching in 2025 and is going to completely change how international travelers enter Europe. This means that instead of a border officer flipping through your passport, biometric scanners will track your entry and exit automatically. Space-age facial recognition and fingerprint scans will replace traditional passport checks. Now here's where it gets interesting. This system will track every single entry and exit. That means no more confusion about how long you've stayed in Europe. The system knows exactly when you entered and when you left. And for those of you wondering about overstaying your visa, well, they're going to be pretty much impossible to get away with from now on. But there's more. Along with the EES comes the European Travel Information and Authorization System, or ETIAS for short. It's a new security measure being implemented by the European Union for all travelers coming from any of the 60 currently visa-exempt countries, including the USA, Canada, and even visitors from the UK. So what is it exactly? ETIAS is a mandatory pre-travel screening process that aims to enhance border security, making entry into Europe smoother and more secure by knowing about who's coming to the European Schengen area before they even arrive. You'll need to apply online before your trip, and you'll need to provide some basic personal information like your passport details, name, citizenship info, and some other security info like your planned destination. It'll cost you €7, but it's free if you're under 18 or over 70. Officially, you should apply at least 96 hours before your trip, but my advice is don't leave this to the last minute. Get it sorted out in advance, because there's bound to be some hiccups when the system is first introduced. The good news, though, is once you get your ETIAS approval, it's valid for 3 years or until your passport expires, whichever comes first. And you can make multiple trips during this time, as long as you don't stay more than 90 days in any 6-month period. The official ETIAS start date is still to be confirmed, so keep an eye on the EU website for updates. And these new border entry changes for Europe are just the beginning, so if you're finding this video useful, don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to stay updated with all these coming changes. Now, if you're planning on heading to the UK, then there's even more you need to know about. Since the UK left the European Union, it introduced its own system from the beginning of January 2025, called the Electronic Travel Authorization, or ETA. If you're from countries like the United States, Canada, or Australia, you'll need to get this authorization before you even think about boarding your flight to the UK. The good news is, it only costs £10 and is valid for 2 years. You'll need to apply using a mobile app, and it's not just a formality. The UK government will be checking your background, and while they say most applications should be approved on the day you apply, some could take up to 3 business days. So you definitely don't want to leave this to the last minute. And here's where it gets even more interesting, because from April 2025, even EU citizens will need an ETA to enter the UK. The only exceptions will be British and Irish passport holders and those who already have a valid UK visa. Once you get your ETA, though, it's valid for multiple entries over 2 years, and you can stay for up to 6 months each time you visit, which is pretty generous. It also links digitally to your passport, so when you're at the airport check-in, the airline staff can instantly verify if your ETA is valid. This means less hassle at the border and hopefully shorter queues at immigration. Now, for international travelers, understanding which countries are in or out of the EU political zone can be a bit confusing. And then there's also the Schengen area, which is made up of 27 countries in Europe, with open borders and a standard visa policy for international travel. And here's some exciting news for travelers to Europe. Bulgaria and Romania are finally joining the club from January 1st, 2025. This is great news because all those annoying border checks between them and other Schengen countries will disappear. And if you watched my video about underrated travel destinations, you'll already know that Bulgaria is one of my top recommendations for places to visit in 2025. So if you're traveling from Greece to Bulgaria, you won't need to stop at the border anymore. Just drive straight through like you're crossing from France to Germany. And the same applies if you're traveling into Romania. You'll be able to drive all the way from Vienna to Budapest, then into Romania to visit the castles of Transylvania, and all the way to Bulgaria's Black Sea coast, all without stopping at a single border checkpoint. This expansion should also boost tourism here too, so airlines, buses and train companies can operate more easily between cities without the hassle of separate border controls. More direct routes means more options and potentially better prices for travelers, so travelers can more easily include these countries in their European itineraries. And let's be honest, both countries have some amazing spots that deserve more attention. We're about to get into change number 5, and it's by far the most important new rule for international travelers to know about, especially if you're coming from the United States. And if you're flying into Europe, make sure you stick around to the end to hear rule number 7 as well, because that's another incredibly important one for you to know. Starting in 2025, many European countries will require visitors from non-EU countries, including Americans, to have travel health insurance before they can enter. While this isn't exactly brand new, it's becoming stricter, with countries like France, Spain, and Italy already enforcing it. And more are expected to follow suit. The insurance must cover at least €30,000 in medical expenses and include coverage for repatriation in case of a serious illness or injury. It's a good idea to double-check your current travel insurance meets these requirements or consider purchasing one that does. It's a simple step that could save you from any surprises if you need medical attention. Now let's talk about some other changes that are going to impact on your wallet. Tourist taxes are getting a major overhaul across Europe. Cities and regions are introducing new fees or increasing existing ones to manage over tourism and fund local infrastructure. Venice is leading the charge with a controversial dynamic tourist tax system. Starting April 2025, if you're visiting for just a day, it could cost you up to €10 depending on when you arrive. Book early and you might pay less. Show up last minute on a busy day, that's when you'll pay the full amount. Greece is also hiking up its nationwide tourist tax, known as the Climate Crisis Resilience Fee. The tax is intended to help rebuild Greece's infrastructure, which has been damaged by climate change. It varies depending on the type of accommodation and the time of year, from €2 per night up to as much as €8 in high season. That might not sound like much, but for a family staying 2 weeks, it could add an extra €400 to €500 for your trip. And it's a similar story in Portugal's Madeira Islands, where they're now charging €3 per person for the use of any of their 30 scenic hiking trails. It's not just a fee, it's about funding infrastructure and maintaining beautiful locations, but it'll still add up. Interested in watching more videos like this, and this? Then why not subscribe and leave me a comment about your dream travel destinations? Now, as more and more travelers are choosing to travel with carry-on luggage only, airlines are cracking down on their carry-on allowances and restrictions, and it's causing major headaches for travelers. But there's also quite a few rumors going round right now that airlines worldwide have all agreed on one universal carry-on luggage size. We'll be installing bag size and weight checkers at every airport gate. And most carry-on bags on the market today won't meet these new requirements. So let's quickly break this down, because that's not all entirely accurate. Firstly, there's certainly no universally agreed carry-on baggage size, and there's unlikely to be. In fact, the European Union has already said that it's up to the individual airlines to set the rules for the amount and size of carry-on luggage and any applicable charges. One thing worth noting, though, is that carry-on luggage sizes in Europe are typically a bit smaller than allowed by US domestic airlines, and also come with a maximum weight restriction, somewhere between 7 and 10 kilograms. So if you're traveling from the US to Europe, this is something to be aware of. The best piece of advice here is to check carefully the rules for the specific airlines you're planning to fly with. Now, as more and more travelers travel carry-on only, airlines are becoming stricter on checking carry-on sizes. And it's more and more common to see bag-size checkers at the boarding gates and charging passengers a fee if they're too big. It's particularly an issue if you're flying with some of Europe's budget airlines, and I've certainly been victim of this myself a few times. And while the airlines say this is partly to try and speed up the boarding process, more likely than not, it's to squeeze a few more dollars or euros out of passengers. So once again, make sure you check the specific rules and requirements of the airline you're flying with to make sure you don't get any unwelcome surprises before you board your flight. But despite all these changes, Europe is an incredible place to travel, and you're going to want to check out this video next if you want to know 40 of the most amazing places in Europe you should visit. With that said, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.